This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.
Well, hey everyone, it's Mark Bayer, and you're tuned to When Science Speaks. Thanks so much for being here. Today's episode is brought to you by Bayer Strategic Consulting in Washington, D.C., which helps scientists and engineers get funding, gain influence, and build relationships with the stakeholders who matter most. It is such a great pleasure to have Dr. Palesa Mothapo on the show today. Palesa is the head of Postdoctoral Research Support in Stellenbosch University's Division for Research Development, located in Stellenbosch, South Africa's Western Cape province. Her primary role is to provide support for postdoctoral research fellows through capacity development initiatives, identifying new funding opportunities, and overall support on the processes that influence these emerging researchers within the academic space. In 2018, Palesa was selected as a Mandela Washington Fellow, and in 2014, she was included in the Mail and Guardian newspaper's 100 Young South Africans for Excellence in Science and Technology. She's recently been nominated as an Inspiring 50, which is a program in the Netherlands honoring leaders in STEM all across Europe and also in South Africa. Palesa is an alum of the Green Matter World Wildlife Fund's Emerging Leaders Program. Her research focus is on invasive species, mainly ants, biodiversity impacts, control and management, as well as socioeconomic and sociocultural impacts related to policies on the management of invasive species. Palesa is an advocate for and active in capacity development in academia to improve research transition from academia to industry, with a focus on increasing innovation potential of graduate students, as well as improving graduate and high-end skills graduate employment. Palesa is passionate about young women in STEM and devotes much of her time to mentoring and encouraging young women, particularly in rural and underdeveloped areas, to take part in STEM careers. She earned her Ph.D. in Zoology and her Bachelor of Science honors and master's degrees, all from Stellenbosch University. Welcome to the show, Palesa. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to join you today.
And I'd like to start with your career journey, which is really fascinating. How did you first develop your interest in zoology and then later decide to focus on invasive species?
Okay, so I grew up in what we call a township. So I don't know what in the US is like an informal settlement, like the Bronx, like I see on TV.
Right.
But that's the kind of area I grew up in, and I wasn't very exposed to science. The first person in my family to go to university or to even get as far as I got. But I've always been interested in nature. I loved animals. I had all sorts of pets. So I was very interested in the environment. And I knew from a young age that I wanted to be like a professor or something. But I knew that's where I wanted to be one day. So I got a scholarship to come to Stellenbosch University when I was in high school. And it's like a merit scholarship. So I got that, which paid for my whole undergraduate education. And that's where I studied my Bachelor of Science and really gravitated towards zoology because animals and my general interest in this area. So that's how I pursued that kind of line of studies.
And then in your role, in your role at Stellenbosch, you help postdocs who are making the transition from academia to industry. And that's a career path that's really interesting to our listeners. What types of skill development strategies and resources do you draw upon in working with your trainees?
Yeah. Okay, so I've been a postdoc. I was feeling at some point that I'm going to be a permanent postdoc. Because I wasn't getting a job in academia where I really wanted to be. And I felt my skill sets were shaping me only for academia. And so when I eventually landed in this position, I actually realized there were many skills that I gained on my own that were part of my own self-development, like learning project management, supervising, collaborating all over the world, applying myself in various industries, working with industry projects really shaped me and prepared me to be in this position. And then I felt that, the academic environment kind of forces postdocs to stay in academia, even though there isn't sufficient uptake, there isn't space also, the turnover is very low. Academics stay in the same position for a long time. So you end up with these highly skilled individuals who do not have a position, who don't have an opportunity to gain a foot into academia. And so we need to provide them a platform that will enable them to move into other industries where they can actually have an impact and enjoy life. So in my program, I try a lot to develop programs that help postdocs develop strategies to improve various skills like communication, project management, like I said, finance management, how to write even something simple like a policy, grants management, grant writing, student supervision, teamwork, things that will set them up to work in an industry environment. So that's our fixed focus area. But also, we also introduced entrepreneurship, especially for the science graduate who don't necessarily think of their research as entrepreneurial. Another thing just to add is that when PhDs leave university, they are always looking for a job. And I think that it's time that we stimulate these PhD graduates to live with the aim of creating, and we need to teach them how to be innovative. I know they learn it while doing the PhD, but how to really take an idea and make it into a business. And so that is my focus, and trying to involve a lot of stakeholders from different areas, even industry, to see what industry is looking for in a graduate, and especially a high-end graduate. And I like to say high-end graduate because not everyone goes to do a PhD or stays even further to do a postdoc. So they're really high-end individuals, and what they would require for these individuals to integrate into that environment in the industry. And I try to now build programs that will support that, to actually expose postdocs to this into industry, to enable them to transition.
So interesting. So important. And I've been, we've been fortunate to have a number of entrepreneurs on the show, and also actually a program that might be of interest, which I will, we can talk about later offline, but listeners to this episode might be interested in an episode that I did quite a while ago with Chris Smith, who is at North Carolina State University, which has what they call an Accelerate to Industry program with different elements very much related as far as the goal, however, to what you said. So we'll connect you up with Chris, and maybe there could be some synergy there. Thanks for outlining the types of these types of skills, which are so transferable, as you point out, across industry, really to any kind of job or leadership role, including startups. And, thinking about the knowledge and the skills that postdocs really typically already possess, maybe just, they're not applied in an environment that is outside academia, but could easily be reoriented a little bit to do that. Thinking about the skills and abilities that postdocs typically already have, which do you find are most relevant to a transition to industry? And then maybe often thinking, what are some of the add-ons that you find are often needed, which aren't really present for and needed for, say, further development as a trainee thinks about transitioning to industry?
Yeah. So I mean, getting the PhD, it says Doctor of Philosophy. you're a philosopher, you're someone who creates knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of getting a PhD, you do a project, you do a research. To do that research, you have to find information that is already existing, find data that is already existing, and find a gap, what is missing in that data.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with a problem from that, what is missing, design, a research method, or how you're going to answer this question, or how you're going to solve this problem. Then you gather your own data, and then from that data you create new information, and that information becomes knowledge. And that is essentially the knowledge creation part of the PhD. That research skill is something that you can use anywhere in any field, as long as you are able to know where to find information, which PhDs have to learn to do right from the start. In any environment, information drives anything, drives strategy. Every planning of that institution or organization relies on information, and PhDs are able to process information fast. When they find a problem, they try to find the easiest and fastest way to solve it, so that next time it won't take so long. So they really innovate when they work. Then they're able to package that information in such a way that they can communicate it really succinctly.
Mm-hmm.
If they go to a conference, they have to put 3 to 4 years worth of work into a poster, or into a 15-minute presentation. That requires your ability to choose specific parts of information to share, but that are going to drive the point across. So they're very able to strategically communicate, and also to filter out what is good and what is not so good, and where to apply it. So you can imagine in what types of areas they can apply themselves.
Right.
Then grant funding and finding money. You have to convince someone to give you money for your research, to make them believe that they should fund your research. And that's a really important skill for communication, and to make a compelling case, so that someone can fund you. So I think for me, the skills of being able to communicate, able to find information, able to analyze and process already existing information, problem solving, and innovation. Those are the skills that the postdocs already possess.
So
yeah.
true.
And
yeah, no, go. Yeah, no, I'm interested I want you to talk. I think you were heading to talk about some of the areas where development
I
needed.
think yeah, in terms of the skills that they are lacking, that would enable them to succeed. I mean, these skills are really highly valued already within academia, but then, since you want to transition and you want to be outside of academia due to its limitations, you need to know what would work, what skills that you need to have additionally when you go to industry. What I've noticed a lot is, firstly, industry struggles to understand the PhD person, because they are so rooted in the academia. They're so rigid. That's something that they don't have, the flexibility, sometimes the confidence to know, to apply themselves in that particular field. Sometimes it's just a matter of learning skills like leadership and people management, which is quite a requirement when you go to work in an organization, an industry organization. Of course, we have mentors for postdocs, and then you have HR for employees. Understanding those different processes, and that there are protocols that are put in place to work in the different environments. So things like flexibility and adaptability are also required. I think that once you stay in academia so long, you become so fixed into the academic space that it's very difficult for you as an individual who wants to transition to be able to allow yourself, in fact, to easily adapt to a new situation and where you can actually have a bigger impact. Yeah.
Really excellent point. You know, it's funny when you were talking about the skills postdocs already have, it's almost as if you replace the word research with the word startup, it sounds really similar, right? Very familiar. A lot of the similar skills. And I'm really glad that you are focusing now on entrepreneurship. I want to ask you about something else, Palesa, that you've mentioned a couple of times, which is how to effectively communicate scientific information to general audiences. You know, obviously that's a focus of our show. And I'm wondering how you go about helping trainees do that and your own approach to translating and distilling your research work so it's engaging and accessible to non-experts.
Yeah. Yeah. So before I start, I mean, I became famous here in South Africa because of my work on ants. And in my family, they used to call me ant queen. It's called an ant is called chochi in my language. So then, they all call me chochi queen everywhere. But the reason for this was I became so passionate about my research. I became so passionate about the ants. They're so fascinating, and I was like one of few people working on these ants, and I was just knowing so much. And it was just bottling in me to just I need to talk about it, and I started doing like community projects and teaching biodiversity, looking at impacts of human activities on biodiversity through the small lens of the ants. And I would communicate that. I would go to schools in rural areas and I would share about it, show them the research, talk about ants all the time, everywhere. So even that name stuck now, even though I'm out of the lab.
Right,
But
right.
the name stuck, and I would communicate. I would talk everywhere. I was on my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Twitter. I would post videos. I attended all these science communication competitions. They are really big now, but at the beginning they were very few and far between. So the ones I did were Fame Lab. I'm sure you've heard of Fame Lab. It's a UK-based also initiative. It's like now in South Africa we really run a lot of Fame Labs. In my university we had New Voices for Science, and actually they would do a full-on training program to teach you how to communicate your research, how to speak with less jargon, how to be engaging, how to connect with your audience. So in a way I was lucky to get trained as well in this science communication, and for me it was to make the science very attractive to people from my community. That's why I did it.
Right.
And I used that the platform to reach out and be more visible and show that science is not just chemistry and being at the lab and mixing the chemicals, or science looks different, and I can look like science. You can look at me and say, oh yes, that's a scientist, because the perceptions globally of what a scientist is, it's still male, old white male.
Right,
It's still like that. But the narrative is changing because people are talking, people are visible, women are everywhere, top female researchers, and talking about their work. In terms of our program, we have a annual program for postdocs for science communication, and we call it science communication, but it's not just science people. It's for everyone. We have PhDs and postdocs in economics and business and all those other non-technical science fields. So really teaching them about how to communicate. Even if you're a mathematician, you need to still speak in such a way that people understand you. If I go to talk to an industry person and I tell them, hey, I saw your product, you are using it, it says brown ant, but actually brown ants are many and I tried your product, it doesn't really affect the brown ants that we have in this area, but it's more effective for this type of ant that we have in this area. Would you mind if I do your product evaluation and then you can pay me for the research?
Mm-hmm.
And then the person will be like, sounds interesting. Can you show me the data? And you're like, oh, the data shows that, we tested it on 2,000 ants of the brown ants and 2,000 ants of the green ants. And 80% of the green ants were all killed in 2 days. And these ones, after 7 days, they were still alive. So you can see these are videos that show. And what do you say? And then the person will be like, okay, that's, you talk the numbers, right? You show them the numbers,
right?
And the numbers speak for you. And what I love to say is, you have to convince someone with the number. Like right now, we're trying to convince our university that postdocs, for example, are very highly productive, and support systems need to reflect that. That we need to respect the fact that they're so highly productive. We need to create a supportive environment for them to bolster their careers forward. But I can't talk there if I just come and say, like, you need to support postdocs. They're like, okay, Palesa, so what?
That doesn't
But if
do
I
it.
come there and I say, if I say a postdoc at Stellenbosch University produces 4 papers per year, okay, 3 book chapters, they present at least 2 to 3 conferences per year. That's more productivity than any some of the academics, and they train students, they supervise students, they assist with teaching, the publication incentive, because we get incentive for publication. So that's equal to a publication unit, which equals a certain amount of money. In South Africa is 110,000 rand. So yeah, that's a lot of money. So if you imagine now you're publishing 2 to 4 papers, 4 times 110,000. So that's a lot of money that the university is gaining from a person like who's in their postdoc. And so that means that the responsibility of the university is to find a way to give the postdoc a lot of skills and support them to catapult them into their next career. But then, if we didn't know how to communicate this in a simple, understandable, clear, and compelling way, we would never be able to achieve the results that we would have.
Yeah, I really appreciate you talking about communication, both to external audiences and internal audiences within the university, and how to make your case for that purpose. And there are a couple of things really stand out to me in what you've said. First of all, the passion and energy that you have about your specialty. I know you're not at the bench now. You have another leadership role in the university, but the way you talk about your academic focus and that energy clearly is one way, that probably the first way that people decide whether they're going to engage and listen. And the other, of course, I often ask excellent, eminent scientists like you, who are also fantastic communicators, how did this happen? How are you able to have such strong skills in both areas? And one of the common qualities that I found is someone who is the first generation, the first person in their family to go to college, and then, of course, beyond. So it's very interesting to me that your experience is consistent with that, and how that maybe contributes a bit to your strength in expertise in science communication. I want to ask you, Palesa, kind of shifting gears a little bit. As I mentioned in the intro, you served as a Mandela Washington Fellow in 2018, and I would love for you to share with listeners what that experience was like for you, and how you feel it may have influenced your perspective or your work.
Yeah, wow, that I think is a very, very prized honor in my life. First of all, I didn't think I would get it because when I looked at everyone who's there on the Mandela Fellowship, I mean, these guys they had NGOs, and they had like 20,000 awards from other things, like really amazing individuals. And I thought, I mean, I did my best in my own right. But when I looked at that profile, I kept wondering why am I here? And how did I get here? So I had a little bit of imposter syndrome uh,
Yeah.
when I actually I got the award.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the Mandela Fellowship Program was an initiative by President Obama, and it's funded by the U.S. Department of State.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they identify young African leaders on the African continent, especially in the sub-Saharan region.
Mm-hmm.
And as a fellow, you get to spend time interacting. You get time at the American Institute, a university typically, based on the area that you are working in. Others are in business management, civic leadership, and public management.
Mm-hmm.
And you get assigned to an institute, and you get training on leadership and various other skills. You engage with American institutions, organization, government. I mean, we were in the California Senate House.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were sitting there with a red carpet everywhere. It was wonderful. But we really get to learn about policies,
Mm-hmm.
And policies that work in your country relative to our own countries, and how we can apply some of these tools and existing mechanisms to Africanize them, and actually develop our own societies as the future leaders of tomorrow. We are the ones who are going to drive the change,
Mm-hmm.
and our initiatives, you know, and us into the American into the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and the focus also is on how we develop our continent as the African leaders, because without having a more Western outlook, but to use the tools to shape our own continent and the development of our continent.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So getting into the program was really amazing for me, and I was based in UC Davis in California, where I've returned many times. And engaged with the California State and Senate, and also the California Food and Agriculture Department. They even came to visit again at Stellenbosch University recently. Well, it's recently now because it's 2020. So I think that was last year. Yeah. So towards the end of the year when they came to visit us. So yeah.
That is so impressive. And obviously you belong there. That's why you were selected. And I just love your descriptions of the things you did and how it's led to some subsequent collaboration. I want to ask you, as we look forward to 2021, what your plans are and what your goals are for the coming year.
Yeah. Yeah, so I find myself with a lot of things going on in my head. I like to also think myself like an octopus. So I have 8 things at a time that I really focus. Yeah, I know it seems crazy, but it keeps me on my toes and focused. When I have various things happening, they don't need to be happening at the same time, but they need to be happening partly in my personal life and partly in my academic life and partly in my own career development. So I feel at the moment, in terms of developing aspects of my own professional life, I have to focus on improving some of my own leadership skills within academic leadership, coming directly out of academia as a postdoc and ending up in a research management position. And I feel like the environment has trusted me so much. They've put me in all these these spaces where I have to interact and inform some of the policies and engage with international partners. It's a real big responsibility. So there are areas where I need to improve myself, learning about international relations, etc., management of academic units and things like that. So it's kind of my 3 areas around managing big grants, financial management. So those are the 3 kind of courses I'm looking at. Maybe some additional leadership courses that I will look at. Maybe an MBA, because I've been looking around at an MBA. And then in terms of just my own personal life, if the corona stops, well, it won't stop, but if it's manageable, sure. I have plans to travel with my family. They haven't left the country yet. I've been to a lot of places, so I plan to go with them. There are several conferences that were postponed to next year. Right. One in Finland and one in Australia and another in Japan. So then there are 3 areas that I'll be visiting next year if Corona is willing to allow for that to happen. It's going to happen. Then there are two other areas that I want to work on in terms of our office, and that is developing a visiting fellow program where we engage with universities that we have agreements with. Universities have bilateral agreements, and that is to stimulate the Ph.D. graduates to come and spend some time at Stellenbosch. And the program that I'm creating is called iTeams, or Innovation Teams. And in iTeams, any researcher in the university environment who has a potentially commercial project can advertise it, and postdocs from all over the world can come together and work together in a group for 2 to 3 months at Stellenbosch University, solving this problem. And I plan to make it a summer program so that, those who take summer breaks can come in that 3 months of summer. Instead of going to the beach, they can come and have Stellenbosch winter. It's not that cold. So they can come and have our mild Stellenbosch winter and enjoy and engage with our university staff and solve a problem. With obviously we're still building up on the type of benefits that would be there for postdocs who do that, because often these programs are set up for undergraduate students. Spend a summer in Africa, and then you do that, and then it's the end. If you decide one day to come and pursue the research. So those are my kind of focus area in terms of developing the environment. We already are in the middle of creating a career development curriculum for our postdocs at Stellenbosch University, and it's a range of things from project management, coaching, for everything. It's very important to have that mentorship, and how to have proactive mentors for postdocs and various other programs. We have an innovation program already starting as well in February on entrepreneurship for the sciences. We are working with the organization called Mashauri.com, and they do academic entrepreneurship. And they help scientists become entrepreneurs. Yeah.
So
those are the focus.
What a cool, great array. You do have a lot, so much going on. It's fantastic. The creativity and the passion and the energy with which you're speaking about these initiatives just can't help but draw people in and attract people to the work that you're doing. Dr. Palesa Mothapo, it was wonderful to have you on. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk to our listeners, to engage, to have a conversation, and to share all the really exciting resources and your perspectives on this work, on how you can work with postdocs, providing these resources, this expertise, so that postdocs can find really meaningful, interesting, high impact opportunities outside of academia. Thanks for being here. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really wonderful. And I really enjoy reading your work as well. So it's really wonderful to be able to chat and engage like this. I really appreciate the invitation as well.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you for being here on this episode of When Science Speaks. And I hope you'll be back next time for the next episode of When Science Speaks.
This is When Science Speaks, a new web series profiling innovative and interesting people working in science and technical fields, from academia to industry to the nonprofit world. We explore how to be a powerhouse advocate for science and your research, how to advance your career in meaningful ways that make you happy, and how to push back on the ongoing assault on science and other related issues of interest happening in the world.